start straight away because the basic part of CLL was already discussed by Dr. Vivek. And so I will start with my case straight away. 74-year-old patient present with cervical lymphadenopathy with comorbidities like hypertension, high cholesterol, and prostate enlargement. And he presented with weight loss and fatigue for last 3 months. He had extensive bulky nodes in neck, axilla, and groin. Total WBC count was 88,000 with 90% lymphocyte, hemoglobin 11, platelet count 1.04 lakhs. Flow cytometry already confirmed CLL diagnosis, and marrow is 70% replaced with CLL. CT scan also reveals widespread adenopathy with largest node 12 centimeters. FISH testing reveals deletion 11q and IGHV is unmutated. So, uh, before we start treatment for any CLL patient, whether young or elderly, I will discuss elderly and frail patients. We should have minimum this much of information that whether patient is eligible for treatment or not, patient is fit or unfit, whether he is having comorbid conditions and comorbid score, uh, we should know, and patient's age, whether he is more than 65 years of age or less than 65, 17p deletion and TP53 mutation, and whether IGHV is mutated or unmutated. So this information in today's date is must before we start the treatment of CLL, whether he's young or elder, old patient. And this algorithm shows why these informations are required. Still, CLL is not a curable disease. So clinical trial, if it is available, that should be the option for all the patients in first line therapy also. And then if it is a 17p mutation is there, then we should see the age and comorbid conditions, and if patient is whether IGHV mutated or unmutated, and accordingly the treatment is selected. Next slide. So in this patient, these are the options: observation, bendamustine, rituximab, ibrutinib, rituximab, ibrutinib, obinutuzumab, acala ibrutinib plus obinutuzumab, venetoclax plus obinutuzumab, idealisib plus rituximab, or uncertain. So we should start the survey. Next slide. Option 5, ibrutinib plus obinutuzumab is the answer more by given most by most of the, I think almost by. So next slide. So now we will discuss the three major trials of ibrutinib first, and followed by venetoclax trial and acalabrutinib and combination with obinutuzumab. And if time permits, I will discuss the one real life case if time permits. So this is the, I think this trial was already discussed, Resonate 2 trial, which was the first major ibrutinib trial for CLL naive patients, and it was performed for more than 65 years of age. Standard dose of ibrutinib for 20 milligram once daily until progression, and it was compared with chlorambucil, again standard dose 0.5 milligram per kg days 1 and 15 every 28-day cycle. And ibrutinib was given till progression, and crossover was allowed in chlorambucil arm to ibrutinib following progression of disease. Next slide. And the primary endpoint was progression-free survival. And you can see that 5-year progression-free survival is with ibrutinib is 70% compared to 20 to 25% with chlorambucil arm. Next slide. Although there was 10 towards overall survival towards ibrutinib, but statistically it was not significant. Next slide. So this uh, graph shows extended analysis of frontline ibrutinib and IGHV status in the older CLL patients. You can see that uh, whatever may be the IGHV status, the response to ibrutinib is not different whether it is mutated or unmutated. The progression-free survival is almost 90%. While in case of chlorambucil, if in mutated IGHV status, the progression-free survival is 43% compared to unmutated survival is only 22%. Next slide. So we all know now the common side effect of ibrutinib is hemorrhage, bleeding, atrial fibrillation, hypertension. These are the main non-hematologic side effects of ibrutinib, and you can see that grade 3 hypertension is almost in 9% of patients, atrial fibrillation in 5%, and if you see any grade atrial fibrillation, it is almost in 16% of patients, and major hemorrhage was in 6% of patients. Next slide. In those patients where hemorrhage was there, almost 60% patients were on anticoagulant therapy. And this is the second trial of ibrutinib, which compares ibrutinib versus bendamustine and rituximab versus ibrutinib plus rituximab. So all standard doses are there. I will not discuss the dose. Next slide. And if you see the progression-free survival, again, the ibrutinib containing regimen, that is I or I plus R, is showing progression-free survival, 2-year progression-free survival of 87 and 88% compared to bendamustine rituximab, which is 74%. So there was no significant difference for ibrutinib plus rituximab compared to ibrutinib only. So by adding rituximab to ibrutinib, there was no benefit and progression-free survival was seen. Next slide. And if you see PFS analysis in deletion 17P and deletion 11Q status, again you can see that in deletion 17P mutation, there is no difference in the progression-free survival with ibrutinib. Even in deletion 11Q status, there is no decrease in survival in ibrutinib arm, while if you see the chlorambucil arm in deletion 17P and deletion even 11Q, there is a decrease in progression-free survival. So PFS benefit ibrutinib containing regimen versus BR observed in all cytogenetic factor related groups, but with deletion 17P, the benefit is most pronounced. I made a mistake, not it is BR versus ibrutinib, not chlorambucil. Next slide. And if you see PFS by IGHV mutation status, again in a ibrutinib arm containing regimen, there is no difference either it is mutated or unmutated IGHV status. But in a unmutated IGHV status, the PFS with BR is reduced. Next slide. Here you can see the again ibrutinib as a non-hematological side effects, mainly bleeding and atrial fibrillation and hypertension, which is more common with ibrutinib containing regimen, while febrile neutropenia and anemia and neutropenia is more common with BR regimen. Unexplained and unwitnessed deaths are more seen with ibrutinib containing regimen, which is not explained. Next slide. Now coming to the third trial, which is ILLUMINATE, which compares ibrutinib plus obinutuzumab versus chlorambucil plus obinutuzumab. Again, standard dose of ibrutinib is used in a 28-day cycles. Obinutuzumab was used for 6 cycles, and the patients are more than 65 years of age, or those patients who are less than 65 years of age, they have a comorbid indication index more than 6. Chlorambucil and obinutuzumab again used in a standard dose. Next slide. So you can see the progression-free survival 30 month progression-free survival is 79% with ibrutinib and obinutuzumab arm compared to 31% with ramucirumab arm. Next slide. There was no difference in overall survival. Next slide. So again, treatment emergent adverse events. Again, neutropenia is more common with ramucirumab, while atrial fibrillation is more common with ibrutinib arm. Next slide. So here also the unexplained deaths or death due to AEs were 9% in ibrutinib arm, while in 2.5 years of treatment, while it was only 3% in chlorambucil arm, but the median duration of treatment was 5 months. Next slide. Next few slides, we will discuss the ibrutinib toxicity and its management. We all know that the common side effects of ibrutinib is bleeding, atrial fibrillation, hypertension, and infection. So practical recommendation for clinical use of ibrutinib is usually grade 1 bruising is seen in many cases, but it is harmless and those should not be changed. Antiplatelet or anticoagulation therapy appears safe. Single agent antiplatelet agent can be used and DOACs are usually safe along with ibrutinib. Avoid combined antiplatelet and anticoagulant therapy if you are using ibrutinib, and also avoid double antiplatelet agents. Withhold ibrutinib for 3 to 7 days before and after invasive procedures. Check for atrial fibrillations regularly. Hypertension may occur even later during therapy, so it should be monitored. And check blood counts regularly during first month. Next slide. Diarrhea is the most common etiology side effects of ibrutinib, but hardly it is severe or exceeds grade 1 or 2. Most often occurs during first 6 months of treatment. Usually it is self-limiting or controlled by lopamide. Lactose-free diet or ibrutinib should be taken at late evening. That will also reduce the incidence of diarrhea. Dose reduction or discontinuation is rarely necessary, but in real life, when we use ibrutinib, the incidence is not as low as mentioned in the trial. Prolonged discontinuation is not recommended because patient will progress fast if we discontinue treatment because of diarrhea more than 2 weeks. Next slide. Coming to ibrutinib related atrial fibrillation, we have to find the score, this CHA2DS2 score. If it is less than blood score, then there is no need for anticoagulation, and if the score is high, then there is need for anticoagulation, and DOAC is preferred over the warfarin. And consider alternative anti-lymphoproliferative disorder treatment options if the score for atrial fibrillation is high. Next slide. So we have to do those adjustments when there is a first toxicity occurrence, and you restart ibrutinib with 420 milligram only. If there is a second toxicity occurrence, then you restart with 280 or 2 capsules. If there is third recurrence, then start with 1 capsule only. And if there are more than 3 recurrences of toxicity, then you discontinue ibrutinib. Those adjustment should be done with hepatic impairment, and those should be reduced, and there is no dose adjustment with renal impairment. And if you are using voriconazole or posaconazole, then reduce the dose of ibrutinib to 140 milligram, that is 1 capsule a day. Next slide. So as already mentioned by previous speaker, discontinuation rate in landmark trial of frontline ibrutinib is higher in real world cohorts compared to trial, that is 4% versus 12.5%, with majority discontinuing due to toxicities. Comorbidity index severity affects the progression-free survival and overall survival even in the ibrutinib area. So if the patient is having lot of comorbid conditions or patient is frail, then even if you use ibrutinib, the survival or progression-free survival will be less. And comorbidity is associated with increased dose reduction and discontinuation. So because of this, the survival is less. Next slide. There was one paper published, abstract was published in EHA 2020 update, which was comparing generic versus innovator ibrutinib, and was published from India, presented from India only. And as far as efficacy is concerned, there is no difference between innovator and generic ibrutinib. Next slide. So this is the trial 115, which compares idealisib plus bendamustine and rituximab versus placebo plus bendamustine and rituximab. Next slide. Again, endpoint was progression-free survival, and you can see that in idealisib plus BR arm, the progression-free survival is high. Sorry, progression-free survival is high compared to placebo plus BR arm. Next slide. There was no difference on in overall survival. Again, there are a lot of side effects with idealisib, and you can see that there is a diarrhea in almost 35% of patients and grade 3 diarrhea in 7% of patients. Febrile neutropenia is also high in idealisib arm, and also there is a liver function abnormality in 11% of patients, almost more than grade 3 hepatic dysfunction in idealisib arm. So idealisib is a toxic drug. Next slide. And now coming to the second option for elderly and frail patient is first line obinutuzumab plus venetoclax, and it is compared with chlorambucil in plus obinutuzumab in CLL with coexisting medical condition, which is CLL 14. So venetoclax is used in a 5-week ramp up from 20 milligram. It is started, and it started with the low dose to prevent tumor lysis syndrome, and then gradually increase within 5 weeks to 400 milligram per day. And obinutuzumab is used in 1000 milligram IV day 1, 8, 15 of cycle 1, and then day 1 of every cycle for 6 cycles. Chlorambucil in a standard dose, and obinutuzumab is used in the same dose. Next slide. Chlorambucil is given for 12 cycles, that is 12 months. Next slide. So again, you can see that Ven plus D arm, the 3-year progression-free survival is 82% with Ven plus D, and it is less with chlorambucil and obinutuzumab arm, with is very statistically significant. Next slide. Next slide. You can see that with venetoclax and obinutuzumab, if you do MRD from the blood, it is undetected in 76% of patients with venetoclax arm, and if you do MRD from bone marrow, it is undetected in 57% of patients. Compared to chlorambucil arm, it is 35% from peripheral blood, and bone marrow 70%. Next slide. So side effects are almost same in both the arm, except neutropenia is slightly higher side in venetoclax arm. Next slide. So as far as safety is concerned, in both the arm, the side effect incidence is almost same, and infections are slightly common with venetoclax arm. Next slide. Now coming to the third drug, which is used as a first-line therapy, or which is recommended as, to be used as a first-line therapy in elderly fragile patient, is acalabrutinib combined with obinutuzumab, or alone, or versus obinutuzumab plus chlorambucil in patient with treatment naive CLL, and that is Elevate TN. Next slide. Trial. You can see acalabrutinib plus obinutuzumab. The dose of acalabrutinib is 100 milligram BID. Single agent acalabrutinib and obinutuzumab plus chlorambucil. Next slide. In the acalabrutinib arm, the progression-free survival is 93% and 87%, while it is 47% in the chlorambucil plus obinutuzumab arm. Next slide. So there is a clear advantage of PFS compared to chlorambucil. So 30-month progression-free survival, Acala plus Obin is 90%, single agent Acala is 82%, while chlorambucil plus obinutuzumab it is 34%. And there is no difference in overall survival. But CR rates are higher with Acala plus obinutuzumab, 13%, versus Acala single agent, the CR rate is only 1%. Next slide. And the benefit of adding acalabrutinib, either single agent or with obinutuzumab, it shows its advantage and benefit in progression-free survival in all the groups, all the age groups, whether male or female, all the stages of rise stage, all the performance state of AG. Next slide. Whether it is a bulky disease or non-bulky disease, whether it is a mutated or unmutated, in all the subgroups, there is a benefit with acalabrutinib. Next slide. Again, you can see that the CR rate is higher in obinutuzumab plus acalabrutinib arm. When you use acalabrutinib as a single agent, CR rate is almost 0, while obinutuzumab plus chlorambucil CR rate is 5%. So it is obinutuzumab which is causing complete response rate. Next slide. There's no difference in overall survival. Next slide. The series A's were around 38%, and it was comparable in all the three arms. Next slide. The incidence of atrial fibrillation, hypertension, and bleeding is less compared to ibrutinib, but it is more compared to chlorambucil and obinutuzumab arm. Next slide. So acalabrutinib is highly selective for BTK inhibitor, and it causes less side effects compared to ibrutinib. It is to be taken twice a day because of short half-life, and dose is 100 milligram BD. Next slide. This was indirect comparison of acalabrutinib versus ibrutinib from EHA 2020. This was indirect comparison. The actual randomized trial is going on comparing acalabrutinib and ibrutinib. Next slide. So baseline characteristics were same in both the arm. Next slide. I won't go in detail. Next slide. So next slide. Next slide. So conclusion was, in this indirect comparison, acalabrutinib demonstrated lower rates of several side effects than ibrutinib in treatment-naive patients with CLL without compromising efficacy. The reduced risk of death with acalabrutinib compared with ibrutinib plus obinutuzumab warrants further investigation. And these data provide initial insight into potential differences between these two approved BTK inhibitors as we await more definitive comparative data from an ongoing randomized head-to-head trial. Next slide. This slide is already shown that the preferred regimen for elderly and frail patients, ibrutinib, acalabrutinib plus minus obinutuzumab, and venetoclax plus obinutuzumab. So these are the first choices for the elderly patients. Next slide. Next slide. So coming back to the options which are given. So let us start the survey. So I think acalabrutinib is going to be marketed in near future in India. So that will be a good option. But till then, I think the ibrutinib for us, venetoclax and acalabrutinib are still not available. So ibrutinib as a single agent should be the choice, or ibrutinib plus obinutuzumab. Next slide. And these are the ongoing phase 3 clinical trials. And for elderly patients, ibrutinib plus venetoclax versus obinutuzumab plus chlorambucil. So we'll get the result of this trial. Next slide. So this is a real life CLL case. Mr. BCJ retired central government servant and is running a laughing club in one large park in Ahmedabad. He's 80-year-old, presented in March 2013. At that time, he was 80-year-old with lymphocytosis and lymphadenopathy and splenomegaly. He was eligible for treatment, so treated with chlorambucil for 1 year, and he had near CR, and then treatment was stopped after 1 year. He relapsed in April 2015. All workup done again. No 17p deletion or TP53 mutation. IGHV study was not done. He was treated with B plus R 6 cycles. Again, he achieved CR. And in May 17, he progressed and he had recurrence with huge spleen, lymphadenopathy, lymph node biopsy was suggestive, again SLL, and again no mutation was found. By 2016, ibrutinib was available in Indian market, and he was started on ibrutinib, and he achieved partial response till July 18. So he had a good response for 14 months. Then he developed grade 3 diarrhea after 14 months and was not controlled with all the measures, dose reduction, everything was tried, but he had grade 3 diarrhea continuing, and he lost weight also. So the ibrutinib was stopped for 2 weeks and restarted with reduced dose, but again he developed diarrhea. So there was progression of disease. So various other treatment were tried, R-CVP, R-mini-CHOP, again BR was tried, lenalidomide tried, but there was no response. Next slide. So again ibrutinib was restarted because he was already carrying those tablets which was not used. So we started with 1 capsule and dose increased gradually to 3 capsules, and there was no diarrhea, and he tolerated the drug very well and started responding till December 19. There was again progression in form of huge splenomegaly which was causing cytopenias. Again, there were no mutations. So no option was left as obinutuzumab was not approved by central government CGHS scheme. So I added rituximab because nothing was left. And to my surprise, he started responding again.
Sandeep, are you there?